just like, I need to put out more stuff. I want to put out more stuff. And then they just were like, no, wait, just keep collecting songs, etc. That bothered me. I
Uh-huh.
didn't have any sort of fear, like, I hope this does well, this,
Okay.
that. I didn't really care. I don't know why.
So this is all about you. Once I said, like I said, and your journey, and we'll talk about obviously the new record and all that fun stuff. But I'd love to know, where were you born and raised?
Right here in New York City.
Wow, what was that like? You grew up in the city?
I did, yeah. It was cool. You're surrounded by a bunch of stuff. I remember the first time I ever left the city. I was actually confused because I had grown up totally in New York, in Manhattan, and up in Harlem at first, and then we moved a little bit further down towards the park. And when I first left New York, I was like amazed that there weren't just like buildings everywhere. Like I have that conscious memory of really being like, wow, there's just like a field here. It was interesting. It's cool. It's kind of prideful to be a native New Yorker because most of the people
Aren't
uh, aren't. Yeah, and they're always like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "New York," and they're like, "No, but like, where are you from?" I'm like, "No, like I'm born here on my passport says born in Manhattan." So
That's
yeah.
cool. Yeah, I'm from San Diego and not born and raised there. Not a lot of people are from there either, like
Oh
directly.
yeah,
It's
that's
like people move transplant city.
That's a big transplant city too. Yeah, I don't think I even know anyone born and raised in San Diego, to be honest.
Now
Yeah, I
you
know a lot of
do.
people who move there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what was it like growing up in Manhattan? Did you ever like? I'm curious to know if you got like a driver's license or anything like that, or is that later in life?
No, not really. Later in life, I mean, the age here, lots of places, you can get a license at like 15. Like some of my
Yeah.
friends in the Midwest, New York. It was 18, and I think they're upping it now to actually 20 when you can get a license.
Really? Because it was
Yeah,
16 in California,
yeah,
but
yeah, exactly.
but
Yeah.
wow, it was 18 when you're growing up.
Yeah, I think they're making it even older now,
Really?
19 or 20.
Wow. And I would just imagine because you don't really need to drive there, right? I mean, you can get around.
You don't need to drive, yeah, not at all. I mean, you say that to people, and people are like, "Oh yeah, you don't really need to drive in New York," but like to the extent that you really don't need to drive in New York is really crazy. I mean, most parts of any part of Manhattan, you don't need to drive if you live there. A large part of Brooklyn, you can have a car, but you still don't really need it. It's not really till you get into the faraway reaches of like outer Queens, outer Brooklyn, or right on Long Island that you would need a car.
Sure.
Yeah, same with most of the Bronx too. So
Yeah. Was it cool to kind of have that freedom to go about the whole city? I mean, I'm sure as a young kid, you could just get on the subway, right? And end up
yeah,
anywhere.
it was very easy to kind of lie, to your parents or your dad or whatever, like where you're going, because it's so easy for you to travel. You can
Right.
train and go as far as you want. So yeah, it was cool. I think the world is open. The world opens up a bit quicker to kids who grow up in New York than if you grow up in some place where you need a car or something like that.
Sure. Sure. Well, how did you get into music? Are you from a musical family?
I am from a family that likes music, but
Okay.
no, they're not a musical family. No one plays an instrument except for my sister, but she learned the same time as me, basically. But they all love. My dad is a huge music nerd. Like just loves to listen to music. Always had really good sound systems and would like point out aspects of like what instruments were to me as a kid, and
Hmm.
you know what I mean. He's just like an audiophile, like
Yeah. Yeah.
nerd music guy. So.
Th- Did that kind of spark your interest to perform and learn an instrument, or is it more your sister? Or
um, yeah, he definitely him teaching me about music and stuff definitely helped for sure. I think the same thing with my sister Sophie. We kind of both got inspired by him. He was super open to it, and he also kind of felt that music is like foundational in education, and all
Mhm.
kids should learn music. So he got us, even when we didn't really want to, like made us join like the orchestra or the choir or whatever and stuff like that. So
Did you
yeah.
like, what about piano, or was that something you learned too early? What was the first instrument you learned?
I think the first instrument I learned, it was guitar and
Oh,
violin.
really?
Yeah, and then piano. a little bit after, but it was actually the guitar that I first learned, and then I kind of switched to piano for a little bit, and then switched way back and heavily into guitar as I got older. And
Hmm.
yeah, those two instruments are like kind of the main ones.
When did you start playing guitar? Like how early on?
I think I was 7.
Wow.
Yeah, about 7 years old.
Okay. And were you like, did you join? I mean, obviously at 7, you probably weren't in a band, but like, how did you, was it just like trying to learn other people's songs, or how did you really start to cut your teeth?
Yeah, I just would listen. One part of me would, I've noticed this as I've gone on tour. The radio in New York is very different from kind of the rest of the country.
Uh-huh.
A good example of that is um, there's that Justin Bieber song "Love Yourself" or whatever, right? And it's just an
Uh-huh.
acoustic song.
Uh-huh.
And in New York, they never played the acoustic version basically ever. They would play a version with like a hip hop beat
Oh,
underneath
like
it.
a, yeah, yeah, like a remix type
Yeah, but
version.
like, yeah, but like not like an EDM resist. It's just this. It was the same exact song, but they just put a hip hop beat under it.
Right.
When I traveled to LA, that Justin Bieber song, I heard a lot. You hear the original version a lot, but I would also hear a version of it with like a house beat under it, not a hip hop beat under it. So LA,
Interesting.
yeah. So there's stuff like that. So New York's radio is a little different. There's definitely way more Latin music.
Uh-huh.
Um, there's way more hip hop music on the pop radio out here, and so I would just listen to the radio, and Santana. I'd listen to Santana a lot. Yeah, the '90s version of Santana. Like Rob Zombie.
Rob, yeah.
Yeah, and I would pick up stuff from that, and like Ricky Martin. I would try to learn stuff that I heard on the radio, and then I would try to learn older stuff too if I could find it. In the very early days of YouTube, but I actually picked. I think YouTube was made in 2005, so I was learning guitar before that.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and that's kind of how I sort of developed it. I didn't really have a teacher or anything like
Okay. The
that.
radio thing fascinates me because I came from radio, did for 16
Yeah,
years, and first
yeah.
time I heard your song is I was on a radio station in San Diego called 91X, and we used to play I Feel
Oh
Like I'm
right, yeah.
Drowning like all the
I was
time.
like, oh, you're from that station.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Originally, not anymore,
Original.
but yeah.
Yeah, no, I know that station. Very familiar with it. Yeah, you guys, that station was super supportive for a long time. That's cool.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
love that record. I mean, we played it constantly. You were like
Oh,
one of the, yeah, probably one of at the time when the record came out, that was probably like one of the most rotated songs in our playlist.
really? Wow. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate that. That's
Yeah,
all.
no, we love that record. And but anyway, that's interesting to me that the Justin Bieber thing, because we had a sister station that was a top 40 station, and when bands would cross over the threshold, like we would start playing it, and then it would get picked up by top 40, and they
Right.
would always change it a bit. And the one song I could remember was Rag and Bone Man, when his song crossed over to,
Human.
yeah, when it
Yeah.
crossed over to top 40, it was like they added like some type of beat that wasn't like in the song.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Super common.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, what is this?
Yep. I kind of love listening for that when I go on tour. We always put on the radio because they always change something a little bit, and it's like a signal of what that area might be a little bit more into and stuff. So,
Sure.
yeah.
So what did you, I saw that you were in like a jazz blues type like band. Was that in New York?
Yeah, it wasn't really. I was basically, by the time I was a teenager, late teenager, I was, very good at guitar. I can kind of just play anything anyone asked me to. And so I would sort of fill in for random bands, I guess, if the guitarist couldn't be there. Lots of times I was playing like gigs with professional, like wedding bands. So I would be like
Oh,
way younger than like, the 50-year-old dudes in the band and stuff. So I would just play in jazz bands, blues bands, wedding cover bands, things like that, wherever, I might be needed or something and could make an extra buck. And so I kind of, that's sort of how I started. That was mostly just in the East Coast. I played a lot in Burlington, Vermont, Boston, New York, and, would travel where I could find a job or a gig, basically.
how are you finding those gigs? That's fascinating to me as well.
Um,
Like,
Yeah, that
Just
was
like, I want to join this wedding band. Like, how did
yeah.
you know they needed a guitar player?
Well, I would either, so I had this friend, Ben, who's not in music at all anymore. He's actually a chef in Philadelphia. But he had just like a large, he basically would do that. And he had like a large, just kind of connection of people, and we all kind of knew each other. I don't know. It's kind of just like this sort of East Coast community, and people would fill in when they needed to. And you sort of found a gig a little bit of a different way each time. You know, there was no like set business strategy. This is how I find my gigs. You contact me
Uh-huh.
through here. It was always sort of like a friend told a friend that they
Like a
need some
word of mouth
help.
type thing.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Hmm.
Oh, interesting. Interesting. And
Yeah.
you did that for a while. Like, were you writing music on your own as well during this time
Uh,
period, or?
yeah, I was writing music. It wasn't really, I didn't really know how to produce or record or anything. So it was kind of just like, guitar based songs, and nothing was really kind of coming of it. There's that time period in every musician's life. I especially, not as I guess not as much anymore since everyone can do everything on their own. But when I was a bit younger, I think I probably formed in the court in like 3 year period, like 15 different bands to try to like,
Sure, sure.
get stuff to work out, and it usually never did. And because everyone's young, everyone has their own opinion of how they want to do stuff. So I kept forming bands, and it never worked. And I kept playing in groups, and tried to make some extra money here and there when I could. It didn't really, nothing really started working for me until I learned how to produce. A friend of mine gave me Ableton, a cracked version of it.
Okay.
And I downloaded it obviously, and I just started like going on there. And once I kind of delved into the world of bedroom production, that's when I like a clear path sort of emerged to me of, oh, if I just do this and put it on SoundCloud and get involved in that community, I could end up becoming successful by just getting songs that way. And I don't have to work with a band and 3 or 4 other kids who all have their own different opinions of how the song should sound and this and that, and it's way less political. And so I just, as soon as I discovered Ableton, I kind of dropped every single other thing I was doing musically and just like focused on producing and writing, like that.
Yeah, it's like more of a solo thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And is that what, and then 2 feet just came of what you were doing there?
Yeah. I basically spent, it only took me, I got Ableton at 21, and, then I got signed to a label at 23. So
Right. Because
yeah,
you had a huge hit off SoundCloud,
yeah,
obviously.
exactly. Yeah. So it took only about 2 years of just like doing Ableton every single day, to get
Wait,
to that point.
yeah, well, you say only 2 years. 2 years is a long time. I mean, I'm
It
sure
is a lot.
that was a grind when you were doing it. You're probably like, is this ever gonna land? Like, does anyone
Yes.
care?
You're exactly right. Yeah, it was. I remember being like, I didn't, thinking like I never graduated from college. I would be going for runs like in the park or something, and be thinking to myself, I never graduated college. I've been doing this for a year and a half. Nothing's happening. Is anything going to happen? What the hell am I doing? That type of thing. So yeah, I mean, that was definitely present in that 2 year period. Looking back,
Uh-huh.
I go like, wow, like looking back, it seems kind of easier and quicker than it was definitely at the time.
Sure, because like I said, 2 years isn't just like you put the song up after 2 weeks and it like blew
Yeah,
up. It was like
exactly.
to go to be at something that long for 2 years and really hoping that it's gonna land, and obviously it does. I mean,
Yeah.
that says something about how much you were really putting into it. You didn't go to college, and you didn't go to like. I'm surprised you didn't go to like Berkeley or something as
I,
such a good guitar
I,
player.
no, I didn't graduate from college. I dropped out of school. I did go to college, and I went to Berkeley for a
Oh,
little.
you did? Okay. What was
Uh,
that? Did you go in as a guitar player?
I did, yeah. Mhm.
And
Yeah.
did you have to audition or like sight read, do any of those fun
Yeah, I don't
processes?
know. I don't know how to read music, so I didn't do any sight reading or anything. I just went in, and I had like 2 other friends who auditioned for Berkeley, and they didn't get in, and I kind of asked them what they play, and they were like, "Oh, I played some like jazz thing mixed with Jimi Hendrix," and the other friend said something kind of similar, and I was like, "Okay, so I'm not going to do that if that doesn't work." So I kind
Right.
of rehearsed this. I bought this acoustic guitar, and I put microphones inside of it. so I could tap it. You know those like tapping.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I did one of those for it, and I got in for that from
Well, they're
that.
probably like, this guy's super creative to like kind of almost build your own guitar.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the guys who were at my audition were like old school kind of jazz guys, and they were sort of fascinated by the whole process. So I think that probably helped. So I did go there. I didn't like it. I actually only attended about 3 4 weeks of classes, and then I stopped going pretty much entirely. And then I didn't go, the next semester. So I was only there for about a month and a half in total.
Okay. You
Before I
just
left.
turned off to it, or it wasn't just
Yeah, I was just like, this isn't for me. It was a bunch of people who were very obsessed with their own, instrument playing or whatever, and that's just not for me. I'm not like, they would judge if a song is good or not based on how complicated the chord progression is, and it's like
right?
those of my favorite songs have like 3 or 4 chords, and they're all like basic chords a kid could learn the first day.
Right. Some of the biggest songs of all time
Yeah,
are that way, right?
exactly. So I just was like, this isn't really what I want to do. So I just kind of left pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, I could see that, like people
Yeah,
being kind of snooty in that sense, like,
uh,
oh, uh,
exactly.
but when it comes down to it, like, I mean, Blink 182 for me is a great example of a band that could write 3 4 songs and have be one of the biggest bands on the planet. Green Day too. I mean,
Yeah, I think most good songs. I mean, you don't need complicated chords to make a good song. Sometimes it just makes them sound muddy and crowded, and a normal person would listen and not care. They just want something that's catchy and easy to hum along to and fun, and
sure.
or emotional or whatever. So it's more about, to me, music's about emotions and not about theory or complexity of what
Right.
I'm really doing.
Sure. When did you get Ableton after you had left Berkeley? Or were you still
Yeah,
going there?
no,
Okay.
I had left. I had left, but I actually got it from a friend who went to Berkeley. Um, so I guess in a sense,
It
kind of
came through
helped
the same
out.
vein.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And then you put out Go Fuck Yourself, which is this becomes this huge hit. And when you put that record out, did you quickly see success on it? Or like, can you tell me about that song
No,
at
I mean,
all?
I did on SoundCloud. So immediately I saw success on SoundCloud, started having, labels reach out to me and stuff. But in terms of it being, now it has, billions of streams, is
Yeah.
platinum in like 30 countries and whatever. That took a long time. It was kind of this slow burner song when it came to like YouTube and Spotify and things like that. But on SoundCloud, yeah, in terms of like what my friends, how many plays my friends were seeing, the first day they put out a song, the next day, I mean, that had so many plays. It was immediately clear to me that this new project I had started finally was working.
It
So that
had
was kind of,
something.
yeah, exactly. So that was kind
Do you
of,
know how it initially kind of exploded? Or was it something where you put it up and then you woke up in the morning and it had just like an insane amount of
yeah,
plays?
yeah. I have no idea. Yeah, I
Oh,
put it out,
wow.
and the next day. It just like it was just big. I mean, uh, I sent it to some friends, all of which had not a huge SoundCloud following, but they all had a couple thousand followers, and I sent it all to them, and they shared it that night and everything like that. And the next day, it just was, yeah, it was crazy.
Oh my gosh. And then labels are reaching out to you. Are you overwhelmed at this point? Like, what have I
Uh,
done?
yeah, uh, kind of. At the same time, as you said, I had been working, at Ableton for 2 years, and I've been playing guitar my whole life, and kept starting all these bands, and um, things sort of incrementally build. So like I was at the point where I sort of knew, based on how good I had gotten at producing music, and based on how some of my other projects had started to do, like every project I created got a little bigger, right? So
Mhm.
each band did a little better. Each alias on SoundCloud did a little better than the last one. Um, so this was the one that I finally put out that like connected. So I was definitely like really happy, but I think I kind of knew. I heard the song. I obviously wrote it, and when I was done writing it, I was like, "There's no way this isn't going to do really well." you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
You knew there's something special there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow. And then you signed to Republic. And
Uh-huh.
are you worried once you get on now you have this major label backing you? Are you like, uh-oh, now how am I going to follow this up? Or did you not, was that not a thought? Or did you already
Um,
know that you had more hits in the art and, you know, kind of in the pipe?
yeah, I didn't really worry about that. I don't know why. You know, the real thing that started to bother me was I was just like, I want to put out music. I want to put out more music right now. Like I write every day. You know,
Uh-huh.
I'm a very disciplined writer. Um, and so, you know, I was just like, I need to put out more stuff. I want to put out more stuff. And then they just were like, no, wait, just keep collecting songs, etc. That bothered me. You know, I
Uh-huh.
didn't have any sort of fear, like, I hope this does well, you know, this, that.
Okay.
I didn't really care. I don't know why.
That's a
Yeah.
good outlook though. I mean, instead of
I,
sitting and, you
I just
know,
wanted to write.
pondering it.
Yeah.
Right. And then you put out, I feel like I'm Drowning was the next song you put out and it goes #1 on all charts. And like
Yeah.
as we talked about earlier with, you know, the station I was at, we would play the hell out of it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, heavily, like every other hour I was playing and
Right.
people loved it. And it was, I mean, obviously it's a massive song for you. And what was it like to see that like next level, you know, radio success? And, you know, I'm sure that must have been a totally different, you know,
Yeah.
experience.
I mean, that type of song, although, you know, Go Fuck Yourself has itself in its certain circles and still has more streams, but, you know, having something at radio and then playing late night and having like a bunch of people wanting to do interviews and all this stuff, yeah, that was definitely like a very crazy experience. You know, it was just sort of a wild kind of ride. You know, it's not as fun as people might imagine though, because it's not like you're just sitting around enjoying it. You know, you're waking up and your schedule is like, you know, just slammed from the second you wake up to the second you go to bed. And, you know, it's a ton of traveling and playing radio shows all over. And, you know, you're almost never home and you're on like, you
Mhm.
know, 100 flights that year and et cetera, et cetera. So you don't really have time to enjoy it that much. You know, and I've had friends who've had, you know, #1 on the radio, and they kind of, when I talk with them about it, they sort of say the same thing. You know, you don't,
Right.
yeah, it's not, you don't really have much time to enjoy it or soak it up or anything like that.
Because you're just constantly moving. Once you're at that level, it's everybody wants a piece, and it's like, oh,
Yeah,
hey, come play our show. And
exactly.
you're
Yeah, I mean,
right.
you're just busy 24/7.
Wow. And when do you have time to write the follow up record, Pink? During all
Um,
that?
yeah, basically, like just when I, you know, got a week or two finally at home instead of being on the road, or, you know, I would, you know, have to cancel, you know, interviews and stuff like that just so I had more time to write. So that record was written on and off the road. It wasn't like, you know, block out a 3 month period and write the record. It was, um, you know, just whenever I had the chance, kind of.
Sure. And I mean, you had another hit on that record. I mean, you had a handful of hits, but we played that song too. I mean,
Right, exactly. Yeah, that
yeah.
song did well. That song's got a, you know, the music video has a lot of, you know, millions and millions of streams, and it's got a bunch on Spotify. Yeah, that song was too. And fans request it all the time. That song did really well too. Yeah.
Which is,
But the cult song on that record is "Baby," BBY.
uh-huh.
Um, that's probably one of our most popular live show songs.
Song.
Scream requested from, you know, every crowd, you know, ever, and it's definitely one of the cooler live songs and everything like that. So that record was great for our touring. I think that record was better than the previous record for our touring. You know, some records are great for radio and streaming, and some records help really build your live show because people just really want to see that type of show live. You know,
Uh-huh.
so that record helped out the touring kind of more than anything else.
Okay. And was Baby out when you started getting people to request it, or was it a song that people knew that you were doing live and they're like, oh my God, we want to hear
Yeah,
that?
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, it actually, because we started playing it live before it was out, and then
Uh-huh.
like the sort of culty like fan following that goes to my shows knew about it. People would request it, you know, scream it out, you know, and they were guessing the name of it and everything like that. So that song's an interesting hit to me because it lives more in the real world than it does on like either radio or streaming. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
really cool
Yeah. Yeah. It,
that song kind of lives on, and probably meant a lot to you knowing that it wasn't even on the record and people are already resonating with it.
yeah, that was a really great feeling. So, we still love playing that. That's normally, either the first song or the second song we play, just to
Uh-huh.
get people going because it's like such a quick paced track.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. And then of the follow-up record to that one, obviously is a concept album.
Yeah.
Max Mako's Dead, right? And
It's,
there's some fascinating story behind that, correct? As far as
yeah.
how it all kind of came together.
Yeah. I mean, that that album meant a lot to me. From a creative standpoint, from a personal standpoint, from a we never got to tour it, but from a
Right.
touring standpoint, it would have been just a fabulous thing to do. But yeah, I mean, if you have questions about that, let me know. I got a bunch of a bunch of stuff about that album.
No, I would love to talk about that album. I want to know, like, so you wrote the lyrics, right? It was like a story, like a 25-page kind of. How did this whole concept begin?
So the story starts, I guess. I have a very large Central American and South American um, fan base,
Okay.
and so we were playing a festival in Mexico, and um, you know they told us we were going to have about 5,000 people at our set. We ended up having 45,000 people at the set, and there was drones flying over, and I got super nervous before I went on. So I sort of created this character for myself, and I had been doing this before, but this is when I finally realized, oh, I'm really creating a character. And I got in a character before I went on, so I could pretend to be someone else in front of all the audience and stuff like that. And I pretended to be this other thing, so it was easier for me to get on stage. And then I started thinking after that, like, okay, you know, I like to create characters to perform. Is there a character? Is there a story I want to tell in an album and create a character based on people I may have met or know or something like that? So I'm not sure if you're aware. I'm guessing you probably are. I spent a bit of time in a psych ward in a hospital
Hmm.
in Bellevue, New York, and it's a public hospital. When you go into a psych ward against your will, you end up being a ward of the state, so they don't let you out. Like you can't just say, "Oh, you could be a billionaire or the founder of Apple." If the state has you in a hospital, you
Can't
can't
just
get out.
leave.
Yeah, you can't just leave. You have to stay until you're approved to get out, and it's a public taxpayer funded hospital. So unfortunately, and I think it's a really truly horrible thing. These places are badly run. They're kind of falling apart. A lot of the people there, some of them are violent, and they keep them in different areas, but most of them are just homeless people who got in some sort of altercation on the street. They didn't commit a crime, but they're acting dangerous or whatever. So the police come and pick them up and put them in the hospital. So that was a lot of the people at the psych ward.
Hmm.
But out of that, there was some people with very fascinating, very interesting, sometimes beautiful stories about their life, about how they ended up there, about the things that precipitated them becoming homeless or their mental collapse or just how basically just their story, and everyone had a different interesting story, and a lot of these people were really beautiful people, and I enjoyed talking to a lot of them and learning from a lot of them, and figuring out their life. And so when I decided to come up with it, I wanted to make a concept album. I decided I had a bunch of notes from the psych ward from talking to a bunch of these people, so I just wanted to make like an amalgamation, combine some elements of their story into the story for the album. The pandemic had just hit. I had a bunch of time on my hands, and I wanted to do something that was both cathartic and meant something more to me than just simply, creating like a sexy song or a song just for the live show or something like that. I really wanted to tell a story because I had the time and all of that. So that's kind of where the album came from, and I'm really happy with how it turned out.
No, it's an incredible record. And even the videos that I'll go kind of go with it are so cool as
Thank
well.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, with you also hired what, like an acting coach and everything else to kind of go along with the record?
Yeah, he is a absolutely brilliant guy. You know, he coached Rami Malek for Bohemian Rhapsody.
Oh, wow,
Yeah,
really?
he's
For the Freddie Mercury role?
yeah, for the Freddie Mercury role. You know, he himself is a fantastic actor. You know, he's a big character actor. You know, for one of his own shorts, you know, where he was a homeless person. You know, he spent 2 weeks on the streets in Boston, and you know has just absolutely insane stories from that. And he's just a totally brilliant guy when it comes to getting in the role. So I worked with him for a couple of months to sort of really figure out how I wanted to do this character for the music videos and stuff. But a large part of it was going to be for the live show, so I could act as a character on the live show. Unfortunately, you know that tour, as well as the Pink tour,
Right.
postponed and then you know eventually canceled because of the pandemic. So I haven't I don't think I'll ever get a chance to do the Max Mako tour. Maybe 20 years from now, if I want to like go back.
Oh, you don't have any plans to bring it out after,
No,
now that things are opening? Because I know you have some shows coming up.
yeah, but I keep moving. I always keep moving, and the next album's coming out, and I don't want to go back and do the. I just gotta keep pumping forward with
Move
music.
forward.
Yeah.
Sure.
So the upcoming tour is going to be a lot of the old music, some stuff from Max Mako, and then a lot of the new album too.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah,
So you had this whole like thing mapped out, it sounds like,
I
for the
did.
Max
Yeah,
Mako is Dead, right?
yeah.
And
It's super unfortunate.
were you in the process of creating the whole kind of live show when COVID happened, or was that already the pandemic already kind of a thing?
The pandemic was a thing, but we all thought that I guess we all thought that it would be over sooner than it was, or touring would come back sooner than it was, and we were just way off by timing. The Max Mako tour, we wanted to do it in spring, early summer of this year, and obviously that never happened. I mean, we even had the dates up and everything like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that's so unfortunate because I'm sure that was a lot of work and a big,
yeah, yeah.
preparation for that. I mean, like hiring the actors and I mean,
Yeah, that was a real bummer. But what are you gonna do? I didn't really, there's nothing to do. I just got to keep moving, and maybe we'll incorporate it in some way in the future, or do a tour just of that album, down the line. But we'll see.
like yeah, like you said, you got to keep moving forward. So once you
Yeah,
realized like this probably isn't going to stop for a while, how quickly do you start writing this new record? And obviously, I want to talk to you about Fire in My Head, which is the newest one
yeah.
that you put out.
I started writing it basically the day I was finished writing Max Pico.
Oh, really?
I
That quickly, just
yeah,
moving forward.
yeah, you know, I have to write every day. I can't, I can't go a day without writing music. At least a couple
Wow.
hours. Yeah, I won't be able to sleep. I don't feel good about myself. I need to do it every day. So, as soon as I finish Max Mako, normally I would be preoccupied by preparing the live show and rehearsing with the band and then doing the tour. But we obviously didn't have that this time, so I just dived right into the next record. It's actually the next record's completely done. It's like more of a mix of my. I wanted to kind of revisit my old sound from the first EP a bit, so this next record kind of touches on that a bunch.
Wow. What was the reasoning behind that? Just
I just, I don't know. I did the concept album, which is something I've always wanted to do. And then I wanted to see just creatively, kind of as an experiment, what it would be like to kind of revisit my old sound with a lot of the skills I feel like I've developed over the past, 6 years. Um,
mhm.
and see how I could re just redo it and see if I developed on it, see if I can expand on it. And I thought it would be an interesting creative, thing to practice and do. And it definitely was. I had a ton of fun writing this album, and it's way more kind of free form. A lot of these songs are going to do just, fabulously for the live show. And I'm super proud of this one too. So I can't wait for everyone to hear this one. And obviously, it's doing really well.
Uh-huh.
Statistically, Fire in My Head got the most streams the first month of any of my releases on Spotify ever.
Wow.
Yeah, more than I Feel Like I'm Drowning, because my songs usually take kind of a while to start picking up. That's just kind of the way alt music is, at least for me, and I found out
Yeah.
friends. Yeah, it just it takes way longer than pop or hip hop to kind of pop.
Right.
And this one just started doing really well right off the bat, and it's still doing really well. It's still in my top 10 on Spotify and just keeps going up. And so yeah, I mean, I that's a good start for sure for the first single off the new album.
Yeah, I was gonna say that must feel pretty good knowing that going back to your roots didn't. I mean, it's working.
Yeah, I mean, the fans, love that. I mean, they were just super hyped when the song came out, and all the comments were like, "Oh, this sounds like the first EP, but like different," and like all this stuff. And I think it's gonna be I think it's gonna be really fun to put this record out.
That's really exciting. And you
Yeah.
said you talking about you talked about how you write every day. And you've done a lot of collaborations. Is that something you enjoy doing? Like personally, I love the song you did with Upsal. I love her. I became friends with her just off of this podcast. She's a great human being. And I love that collaboration you did with her with Drugs.
Yeah, she is awesome. She's super cool. I think she's a total rock star.
Mhm.
And I was super happy to jump on that song. Obviously, she was going to come on tour. She was going to open for me on tour,
Yeah.
on a Pink tour. And so, before we were going on tour together, we were like, I was like, I love this song. I'd love to jump on the song. And, we're touring together. So that could be something really fun, for the show and for the tour and whatever. And she was super all about it. And, they sent me the stems and everything. And I actually recorded my part in about 30 minutes.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah. And we didn't really think much of it and put it out, and it was great for the first couple months. Everyone seemed to like it, and then it went super viral on TikTok.
Hmm.
uh, the version with me singing on it, like the part
Yeah.
that went viral was sort of the end of my verse, and then in the chorus with her and I singing together, and it went really viral on TikTok, and got 2 million video usages, and Charlie D'Amelio and whatever, all the biggest TikTokers were doing the trend with it, and Will Smith did it and everything like that. And that song kind of blew up, and now it's got tens of millions of streams on her page, and ended up being a super successful collaboration.
That's so cool. Taylor's
Yeah.
so cool. Like when we met her was the beginning. I interviewed her when she was touring with Max Frost, and he kind of helped develop her early on. And they were playing in San Diego, the side room at the House of Blues, which is only a couple hundred people, and she was the opener. And it's so cool to see like how she's catapulted, to this kind of this next level. And I
Yeah.
love that you collaborated with her because what you're doing is so, I mean, obviously amazing as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. And real quick on that, the video you shot, was that all in LA? You were in LA at the time and I love the black and white kind of old, like really
Yeah.
old feel of it.
Exactly. Yeah. We were doing big budget. I've been doing big budget music videos for years. I Feel Like I'm Drowning video, which has almost
Mhm.
100 million plays. It was a lot of money, and most of the videos were really expensive, and I was just kind of like, I don't want to do that for this album. I want this album to be black and white, like my first EP. Kind of have the similar vibe. Feel like old 2 Feet, and so that was just my friends. We got like a Super 8 camera, and we got like a digital camera, like from the early 90s or 90s or something. And, we just shot that, just living life. It's not really like, there was no big shoot with catering and a bunch of staff and stuff like that. It was just, us kind of driving around and going surfing and, driving up to Santa Barbara and stuff like that. And it was just sort of a really chill way to do a music video. And I think I'm gonna do like a bunch more of those for this album, because they're super cheap, and it's nostalgic, and you know, it kind of makes you be like, oh, I want to go for a drive with my friends, and it's really honest and all.
Right.
Yeah,
You think you'll do one in New York now that you're back?
I do. Yeah, I think that would be really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. And thank you so much for doing this, Bill. I appreciate you, man. This has been awesome.
Thank
And
you. Thank you for having me.
yeah, I have one more question for you. I want to
Yeah.
know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Oh, I have a lot of advice for inspired artists. Um, at what point in their career, just to make it a little more pinpointed?
Any point you want to decide on, doesn't matter. Just any bit of advice you have.
Okay. I'm gonna pick the point in an aspiring artist's career where they might have labels reaching out to them. Is that a good
Okay.
point? Is that okay?
I love that point. That's great.
Okay. My advice to you would be, if you're going to sign with a label, if you really want to, if you love that label and you've always looked up to them, or you know you think it'll bring you a bunch of opportunities, if you're going to sign to that label, make sure you don't sign your life away. Make sure you don't sign a 3-album deal, a 4-album deal. Make sure you sign for 1 EP or 1 album to see if you like it. And if you do, you can always sign on for more. And if they do, they'll always have you for more. But signing right away for something, if they refuse to do a 1-album deal or a 1 EP deal, their motives aren't in the right place, and you shouldn't do it no matter how much you want to sign with them. And you will if you have labels reaching out, that means they see a future in you. You should see a future in you. You should invest in yourself, and you should only do things that will help you the most out in the future, because that's all that really matters. So that's kind of my advice to aspiring artists. Bringing it backward.